down and out, riddled with doubt, had nowhere to go. Everything's moving so slow, the time's moving too fast. I hope this feeling don't last. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping on to you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping on to you, yeah, on to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a sugar and that shake it all go down. Baby's got a burger and a sugar and that shake it all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got sugar, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Baby's got it indeed. Good morning, everybody. It is Morning Extra. I'm your host, Uncle Warren. As the Chiron here plainly tells you, unless it says something else, I do have a little touch of dyslexia. It could say go fuck myself, but we'll never know, will we? Unless somebody tells me. How's everybody doing here on a Tuesday afternoon? Tuesday afternoon. That's a Moody Blues song. Tuesday afternoon. La-da-da-da. We got Miss Lainey P here. What's up, Lainey? Looking forward to October 1st. Not only is it Rocktober, but it's also the beginning of the undercurrent with myself and Miss Lainey. If you liked Civically Minded when she was doing that, and I did. I totally enjoyed it. I found it chock full of knowledge and information. The good old news you can use. We're bringing it back, folks. So that's coming October 1st. Looking forward to that. So if you haven't subscribed to the Undercurrent channel, there's plenty on there, but it's the Undercurrent with Lainey and Warren on the YouTubes. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and get ready for some funsies. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show Intergalactic. It is Taco Tuesday, yes sir. It's Newsday Tuesday, but it's also Taco Tuesday. I much prefer the tacos over this shit news. Fingerman, you're here early. You've been coming. You've been late for class the last several sessions. So I hope you're not feeling guilty. You come in whenever you want. It's fine. It's okay. But it's usually like the last few shows, it's like, Fingerman, oh, hey, what's up, buddy? We got Kieran's here, too. What's up, Kieran? Good to see you. Morning, Malcontents. Uncle Warren, William Wallace, Kilt, and Sporin. Aaron Gobra, or Braless, sometimes. Willie Bragg in the house. What's up, Timothy? Leary's dead. Oh, no, he's outside looking in. Good to see you, Willie. And just my buddy Ed just filled me in here just a few seconds ago that apparently Howard Stern's show didn't get canceled. Howard Stern, it was a little funsy. They were pranking you, so basically he lied to you. just to hype it up and all that shit. So 71 years old. I'm pretty sure he's not going to last too long doing that. But yeah, so be careful of people who lie to you in the media, because there's plenty of them. Folks, you know, I love money. I love money. I would marry money if it was legal in Illinois to marry paper, which I'm pretty sure it's not. But you know, I'm always willing to push envelopes. See, because paper. Anyway, but in lieu of I guess marrying money, I guess I'll just have to sell shitty coffee. I mean, this delicious coffee. It's Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee, folks. You know it by now. In the darkest corners of hell, where the screams of the damned never cease, comes a bold and somewhat unsettling brew that will have you updating your will right after your very first sip. Rejected by spirits dwelling in Mel's hole, this Java blends the nightmarish flavors of rotten eggs, roadkill, and the smegma of Rabbi Shmuley. Does having money make you want to punch yourself in the genital area? Are you planning on making a fresh cup of coffee for your favorite health insurance CEO? Wink, wink, wink, wink. Then grab a bag of Desperation. It's Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee, found online and wherever Charlie Kirk gets his head inflated periodically. Dude has like this big ass head and then this little bitty face right in the middle, man. It's like a face donut. And remember, use promo code GRIFTER to pay an additional 20%. Because, you know, you can't grift unless you're making a little off the top there. Thank you, Lainey. Miss Lainey P. putting the link to our show coming up October 1st. And I've been wanting to do this. I didn't want to do it for this, but I never want to do this, I guess. But I made it, so I might as well use it. We got breaking news, folks. Ow! Cleanup on aisle 6. Israel targets Hamas leadership in attack on Qatar's Doha. And this is from Al Jazeera, their live blog going on. So apparently the Israeli army says it has carried out an assassination attempt on top Hamas leaders in Qatar's capital, Doha, where multiple explosions have been heard. One Hamas source tells Al Jazeera the attack happened as a negotiating team was discussing a Gaza ceasefire proposal put forward by the United States. Oh, thank you, Fingerman. We'll put yours up too. Appreciate you. Yeah, so Trump's like, this is your last chance. Come on. And they're like, all right. And surprise, it's fuckery. Well, are you really surprised? So a lot of these are just kind of, okay, so in a joint statement, the Israeli Prime Minister and his defense minister linked the attack in Doha to the East Jerusalem shooting that killed 6 Israelis yesterday. We'll get to that in a moment. The Prime Minister and defense minister believe the operation was completely justified in light of the fact that this Hamas leadership initiated and organized the October 7th massacre, allegedly, and has not ceased to launch murderous actions against the state of Israel and its citizens. Since then, the strikes on Doha, which targeted a residential neighborhood, appear to violate several provisions of international law, including the UN Charter's prohibition on aggression against independent states. After the Israeli attack on Doha, Mahdi al-Mashat, head of the Houthi Supreme Political Council, it used to be my old job, says Arab and Muslim countries must pay attention to Israel's plans before it's too late. We warn against a formula for the violations of all countries in the region, al-Mashat said. What happened in Doha will happen again and more in the rest of the countries if we do not all unite in confronting the Zionist threat. All right, so what we know so far, Israel carried out airstrikes on the Qatari capital, Doha, which it said had targeted the leadership of Hamas. The Qatari Foreign Ministry condemned the strikes as a criminal attack, and it constitutes a flagrant violation of all international laws and norms. So Qatar is not down with it. Bibi said Israel takes full responsibility for the attack, suggesting he wants to signal that his government acted alone without U.S. cooperation. Wink, wink, wink, wink. Ow, I sprained my eyelid winking. I don't feel tardy. Got it bad, got it bad, got it bad. Let's see. A Hamas source told Al Jazeera, the Qatari Interior Ministry confirmed that the assault targeted Hamas residential headquarters, but said the situation is now safe. A Hamas source told Al Jazeera that the delegation targeted by the strikes was discussing Trump's Gaza ceasefire proposal. The UN and countries across the region, including Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, condemned the Israeli attack. There have been no official reports on casualties. The fate of the Hamas delegation also remains unclear. The group has not addressed the leaders' fates through any official channels. Let's see, there's one more update, but we'll see what this is. Oh, well, here we go. And Democratic lawmaker John Fetterman shares a social media post appearing to revel in the Israeli attack on Qatar, a former partner of the U.S. as a major non-NATO ally and host to the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. So this is John Fetterman's post. Apparently he has to go with videos because words are kind of a challenge at this point. So there you go. Breaking news. We finally got to use that. How about that? A little breaking news. This happened last night. Global Samud flotilla, a family boat, comes under attack near Tunis. So this is an interesting story because Tunisia is saying, I don't know. The Global Samud Flotilla's family vessel came under attack early today, or last night rather, causing a blast and a fire to break out on the ship after crew members heard the sound of a drone minutes earlier. Okay. Oh, so they're back on the boat. All right. So Tunisian National Guard denies that the family boat was attacked, claiming the fire originated aboard the vessel. However, footage clearly shows an object being dropped directly from the sky. Eyewitnesses on board also identified the sound of a drone moments prior. So, yeah. One more time there. So yeah, this thing. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so now you've got that image in your head, right? So you're going to hear the Tunisian excuse for this. Okay, you ready? So the Global Samud Flotilla confirms that one of the main boats, known as the family boat that was carrying GSF steering committee members, was struck by what is suspected to be a drone. The boat was under the Portuguese flag, the Samud Flotilla said in a statement. Acts of aggression aimed at intimidating and derailing our mission will not deter us. Our peaceful mission to break the siege on Gaza and stand in solidarity with its people continues with determination and resolve, it added. No crew members have been injured. However, the vessel suffered some minor damage. The Tunisian Interior Ministry claimed no drone strike took place, saying the reports have no basis in truth. The ministry said the fire originated on board the family boat. The incident took place as the boat was anchored off Tunisia's Sidi Bou Said port. Sidi Bou Said. Footage clearly shows an object being dropped directly from the sky. Eyewitnesses on board also identified the sound of a drone moments prior. The Global Samud Flotilla is affiliated with the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, which in recent months has sent 2 vessels to attempt to break the Israeli siege on Gaza. Yeah, but before you go there, watch this show, okay? Greta Thunberg and several others were on board the Madeleine vessel earlier this year, were on the family boat. The Samu flotilla said an investigation was underway and that its results would be released. Israel has not commented on the matter. Gee, wonder why. It could be an act of war with Portugal. Last thing you want. Tunisians took to the streets to protest and show solidarity with the global Samud flotilla following the attack. The family boat departed from Barcelona in late August before stopping off in Tunisia. Accompanying vessels and convoys also departed from Sicily and the Greek island of Syros. The vessels are carrying hundreds of tons of humanitarian aid for civilians in Gaza who are being starved and bombarded by the Israeli army. It has been described as the largest civilian flotilla in history. In late July, the Gaza Freedom Flotilla's Handala vessel was intercepted and seized by Israeli forces as it was trying to break the siege and deliver aid to the Strip. Crew members were detained. That was one of the ones that had Chris Smalls on there. The month before, Israeli forces intercepted the Gaza Freedom Flotilla's Madeleine vessel in international waters as it was approaching Gaza to break the siege, seizing the boat and detaining the 12 activists on board. In May this year, an Israeli drone bombed a Freedom Flotilla aid vessel that was en route to Gaza, blowing a hole through the ship, causing a fire and putting it at risk of sinking. Yeah. So, yeah, and one of them said, that it was a cigarette, that somebody flicked a cigarette into some life vests. I don't know what the relationship with between Tunisia and Israel is, but something tells me either that guy is a big-time Israel lover or he's probably on the take in some form or fashion. So, yeah. Meanwhile, back to, the same old Israeli attacks and starvation kill 71 more Palestinians in Gaza over 24 hours. Gaza Health Ministry said yesterday that Israeli forces killed 65 Palestinians and wounded 320 over the previous 24 hours as the Israeli military continues its heavy assault on Gaza City and continues attacking Palestinians in other parts of the Strip. The health ministry said that another 2 bodies of Palestinians killed in previous attacks were recovered from the rubble. A number of victims are still under the rubble and on the streets where ambulance and civil defense crews are unable to reach them at this time, the ministry wrote on Telegram. On top of the violent deaths, another 6 Palestinians, including 2 children, starved to death amid the ongoing famine caused by the Israeli siege. This brings the total number of deaths due to malnutrition to 393, including 140 children, the health ministry said. The IDF has continued killing desperate Palestinians seeking aid, and the health ministry said it recorded the death of 14 aid seekers over the 24-hour period. Since the end of May, the ministry has recorded the killing of 2,430 aid seekers and the wounding of almost 18,000. Israeli attacks on Gaza City on Monday included the destruction of another high-rise building as the IDF is conducting an offensive with the goal of cleansing the city of its Palestinian population and razing every building to the ground. The Israeli military also struck the courtyard of the Christian-run Al-Ali Baptist Hospital, killing at least 1 person, according to the Palestinian news agency WAFA. The Israeli military announced later in the day that 4 of its soldiers were killed in a Hamas attack on the outskirts of Gaza City. The health ministry said that its violent death toll since October 7th has reached the unofficial total of 64,522 because those numbers are way higher than that. And you know the rest there. So yeah, they're talking about those high-rise buildings. This is from Mondoweiss. The ethnic cleansing of Gaza City is expanding as Israel levels residential high-rises. There's one right there. The Israeli army leveled several high-rise residential towers housing thousands of refugees in Gaza City over the weekend, marking the latest escalation in the campaign to completely occupy the city and ethnically cleanse its population. A powerful hurricane will strike the skies of Gaza City, Israel's defense minister Israel Katz wrote on the tweeters yesterday, and the roofs of the terror towers will tremble. the terror towers. The Israeli military had claimed that Hamas was using the residential towers as command and control centers, just like schools, just like hospitals, just like tents. They're all fucking command and control centers for Hamas, apparently, even though 1/4 of the people in prison that are Palestinians are actually Hamas. Without providing any evidence, of course. Israel has also used this general claim when justifying its targeting of hospitals, schools, and other civilian infrastructures. Yeah. On Friday, the Army's Arabic language spokesperson, Avichai Adre, said in a statement that the Army would attack buildings that have been converted into terrorist infrastructure, which included cameras, surveillance rooms, sniper and anti-tank missile launching sites, and command and control centers. Adre also released an illustrative video showing hundreds of buildings on a map of Gaza City highlighted in red, indicating that they will be bombed. On the same day, the Israeli army bombed the Mushta'a Tower. Hours later, residents of the Mecca Tower were ordered to evacuate ahead of its bombing. As Israel has expanded its offensive in Gaza City, it has totally destroyed the eastern neighborhoods of Zaytun, Al-Shujaiya, Al-Tufa, and Sabra. It is now moving into western Gaza City, where the majority of residents from the eastern areas and from North Gaza have fled. These remaining areas house tens of thousands of displaced persons crowded into displacement centers. They're now under intense Israeli bombardment. Gaza's civil defense spokesperson Mahmoud Basal said that targeting high-rise buildings is not an accident. It's part of a policy of forcibly displacing civilians, Basal said in a statement. Entire families are being cast out into the streets, homeless and without shelter. Another building there. The high-rise buildings were among the few structures still standing in Gaza City that were capable of housing thousands of displaced people. Basal said that their deliberate destruction reflects Israel's intention to precipitate a mass exodus of Gazans once they no longer have a place to go. Residents of areas in eastern and northern Gaza City, as well as residents from North Gaza, were forced to flee toward the Sudaniya, Shanti, and Al Rimal neighborhoods west of the city, the Shati and Nabulsi neighborhoods, and the Netzarim corridor. These are areas now filled with tents and crowded with displaced people. Faris Afana, director of emergency and ambulance services in Gaza City, said that evacuation orders included areas in the city's northern parts, such as Abu Iskandar, Jabalia al-Nazla, al-Jalah, and al-Nafaq Street. I hope I said that right, whose residents received orders from the Israeli army to leave immediately. Afana added that all areas in northern Gaza City have become extremely dangerous and people are unable to walk in those areas. Afana said that the Israeli army has deployed quadcopter drones to fire on civilians who remain in the streets in these areas. The Israeli army has also installed new cranes with automatic guns affixed to them, firing on people in the streets, Afana added. Spirit of the age, hello, good morning. How are you over there on the Rumbly Tumblies? Good to see you. As some Gaza City residents scramble to evacuate, Afana said that many are unable to cover the costs of their own displacement. Buying a tent costs over $1,000, Afana explained, and then there are the transportation costs. Unable to afford to hire transportation to carry their belongings, many have begun to flee south on foot, unable to carry most of their possessions and leaving behind their homes and everything they own, Afana pointed out. Paul J. Carroll, I've come over to the dark side now. Yay, Paul! All right. It's more of a like kind of like a nice cool shade over here. You know, it's like you get out of the sun. But, once the sun goes down, it's totally dark. It's totally dark. Good to see you. Sorry, we don't like white people in this chat. Sorry. You'll understand why. You'll see. All right. Since the Israeli occupation announced its intention to invade Gaza City, the army immediately began a complete invasion of the Zaytun and Sabra neighborhoods, destroying everything it could in over 80% of those areas, Afana said. It then moved to the area north of Gaza City in the Abu Iskandar area, almost completely emptying them and launching nighttime raids. What has emerged is an effective siege of the entire city, with Israeli forces positioned in several axes surrounding Gaza City, gradually pushing inward from the north, south, and east. Abdullah Abu Daf, a father of 6 young girls, left the Maghrebi area west of Gaza City after explosions in his area. He said that the army had ordered them to flee south. I hope the army is telling the truth and won't bomb us after we leave our home, Abu Daf said, noting that he isn't afraid of death, but that he wants to protect his daughters and family. We've seen death hundreds of times during this war, so we no longer fear it. When the army orders us to flee, we don't flee for ourselves, the adults. We only want to protect our children. It's not their fault that they should be burned to death or have their bodies eaten by dogs. That's what happened with our neighbors and relatives in Gaza City. Your friend in Iceland from Gaza City got out 4 years ago. All his siblings are still there, but he got his parents to Egypt a year ago. Well, that's good. We should have gotten them all out, but, you know, with what's going on over there, it's amazing that anybody gets out alive. Hey, Abby, dude, good to see you, dear. How are you? Good morning to you. Abu Daf said that he has heard stories about a neighbor who was killed in his home, or another who was burned alive with his family under the bombs, or another neighbor whose body remained under the rubble of his house since the civil defense and rescue teams were unable to reach him. He doesn't want his children to suffer a similar fate. Over the weekend, the number of displaced people leaving the city steadily increased as the Israeli bombardment crept closer to the city center, targeting shelters and what remains of the city's standing structures. Hassan al-Hawi, a resident of the Sheikh Radwan area of Gaza City, said that he left his home because quadcopter drones were firing on homes and residents in his area. He fled with his family to Deir al-Balah, in central Gaza. We spent 3 days looking for a place to go, and in the end, we were forced to seek refuge in the UNRWA schools in Deir al-Balah, he said. The quadcopter would come near our house, and the voice over the loudspeaker would curse at us and threaten us, telling us to leave our homes. They would even fire at us from the windows and sometimes enter through them. We don't know if we'll stay here or if the army will tell us to leave later after they're done with Gaza City, al-Hawi added. Gaza has become a slaughterhouse for civilians, he said. Israel is not bombing Hamas or targeting resistance fighters. It is targeting the defenseless, the besieged civilians who are denied food and water. That's exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing. Anything else is bullshit. We want the hostages back. They don't give a fuck about those hostages. The hostages' families probably do. But Netanyahu, that whole government, they're pawns. Those are pawns, right? The two things they want from Hamas, they want the hostages released, and they want Hamas to disarm. The hostages will probably get released. They're being released, but the disarmament, that ain't happening. And if the Palestinian Authority thinks that's going to happen, they're stupid too. Yeah, exactly. United States of Israel. Israel first, right? So, as we said, there was for every thousands and thousands of people that Israel kills, Hamas tries to retaliate. And they did so over the weekend as Hamas hails the deadly Jerusalem operation as natural response to Israeli crimes. So Hamas released a statement yesterday praising the resistance operation that killed several Israelis and injured over a dozen more in occupied Jerusalem. We bless the heroic and exceptional operation carried out by 2 Palestinian resistance fighters at the junction near the Ramat settlement north of occupied Jerusalem, the Hamas statement said. This operation is a natural response to the crime of the occupation and the genocide it is waging against our people. It is a clear message that its plans to occupy and destroy Gaza City and desecrate Al-Aqsa Mosque will not go unpunished, it added. The ongoing aggression of the occupation against our Palestinian people in Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem will not weaken the resolve of our people in resistance. This operation, carried out in the heart of Jerusalem, strikes at its security core and reaffirms the determination of our rebellious youth and valiant resistance to continue the path of resistance, Hamas went on to say. The operation was carried out by 2 Palestinians who were shot and killed by Israeli forces at the scene. According to Channel 12, 7 Israelis have been killed and at least 17 wounded. Video footage from a car camera showed the moment of the attack. Israeli police are currently trying to understand how the shooters got here, who brought them, and I believe that within a short time we will reach everyone who is involved, said Assistant Police Commissioner Shlomi Bachar, according to Channel 12. Stephanie spoke in class today. Booyah to you too, lady. Hope you're doing well. The police have begun to close off roads in the area. Israeli forces have also begun storming Palestinian towns north of Jerusalem. Palestinian journalist Yusuf Fares said one of the Palestinians disguised himself as a traffic inspector and boarded the bus as if inspecting the trip and checking tickets. Coffee burp, sorry. Then started the attack from zero distance. There was reportedly a traffic accident minutes before the operation, which was the reason for the large crowds present at the scene. The Palestinian Authority must disappear from existence, and the villages from which the attackers came out should look like Rafah and Beit Hanun. Israel cannot accept a Palestinian Authority that raises and teaches its children to kill Jews, said Israeli Finance Minister and second in charge of Hell, Bezalel Smotrich. The operation is the deadliest to take place in occupied Jerusalem or the occupied West Bank in months. It comes in the wake of a recent surge in violent settler attacks against Palestinians. As Israeli settler attacks escalate, Israeli forces continue the forced displacement campaign they launched in several occupied West Bank cities and camps earlier this year. Tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians have been uprooted from Tulkarem and Jenin this year. The Israeli army continues to demolish infrastructure in the city's main camps. Israel has rapidly accelerated settlement expansion and plans to illegally annex the occupied West Bank as a response to the recent revival of the idea of Palestinian statehood and France's vow to recognize the state of Palestine at the UN this month. Maybe. We got more on France later. They got their own fish to fry at the moment. And that's what you're seeing. You're going to see these pockets of resistance like that. But overall, it's just a slaughter, right? It's just Israel just killing Palestinians. Like I said, 3/4 of the people in jail, the Palestinians in jail in Israel aren't Hamas. They're just regular ass people. So, that's why you always have to pay attention to the propaganda, see where it's coming from, and, what it's being used for, what the nefarious deed. And of course, Israeli officials vow revenge after Palestinian attack in Jerusalem. What are they going to do? More genocide? They're going to be genocider? Israeli leaders have vowed retaliation in the wake of a deadly shooting in Jerusalem that left 6 dead on Monday. Israeli media reported 6 people were also wounded in the attack. We told you about that. Israeli army radio quoted the Shin Bet intelligence service as saying the perpetrators of the Jerusalem attack boarded a bus. We told you that too. Speaking at the scene of the attack, Bibi said the killings would strengthen their resolve in the fight against terrorism. We are now engaged in pursuit and are cordoning off the villages from which the murderers came, he said. We will apprehend whoever aided and dispatch them, and we will take even stronger steps. Even stronger steps? You're wiping out a people and literally flattening their homeland. What are you going to do? You going to piss on them too? Set them on fire? He added that attacks of this nature would lead to increased Israeli activity in the occupied West Bank and the expansion of their sovereignty there. It might. You should probably be scared about that. When you fuck around, the find out eventually comes around. He also made an apparent reference to a recent high court ruling that said Palestinian prisoners were entitled to food as part of their incarceration. We actually have a story on that too coming up. The government doesn't make it easy on our enemies, and you should act that way too, he said, addressing the courts. Well, because the government's fucking evil. Netanyahu's presence at the scene of the attack also meant canceling his appearance at a scheduled hearing for his testimony in his criminal trial on Monday. Oh, you see how that works? You see how that works? I can't go to court. I have to go to this terrorist thingy. Far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich went further than Netanyahu, said the attacks proved the need for the dismantling of the Palestinian Authority. We already told you about that. Last week, Smotrich proposed absorbing 82% of the occupied West Bank into Israel, a move that would effectively eliminate the prospect of a future Palestinian state and is highly, highly, highly illegal. Under the proposal, only 6 isolated enclaves where major Palestinian cities such as Jenin, Tulkarm, Nablus, Ramallah, Jericho, and Hebron are located would remain outside of Israeli control. Right. All other areas, including dozens of towns and villages, would be formally annexed. According to the plan, the PA would be gradually dismantled. The Palestinian Authority was established under the 1993 Oslo Accords between Israel and the PLO and serves as the internationally recognized governing body in parts of the West Bank. A number of other Israeli officials promised there would be a response to Monday's attack. Defense Minister Israel Katz said that Israeli military operations would expand across the West Bank beyond the refugee camps that had previously been a major focus. There will be severe and far-reaching consequences to this heinous attack, he said, according to his office. Just as we defeated Palestinian terrorism in northern Samaria, we will soon do the same in other terror camps. Far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir echoed Netanyahu's criticism of the courts and called for the deportation of the families of those who carried out the attack. He also made reference to reforms he enacted allowing Israeli citizens greater freedom to carry weapons in public. Go arm yourselves, he wrote on the Twitters. Ben-Gvir's Atzma Yehudit party said in addition that next week they would raise the issue of restoring the death penalty for terrorism carried by Palestinians. I thought everything was a death penalty for Palestinians already. Were you going to kill them twice? They said they would bring their bill to the Knesset National Security Committee, which is chaired by party MP Zvika Fogel. Zvika. This is the first step towards restoring deterrence. We will continue to advance the law until its final approval, said the bill's sponsor, Limor Sun Har Malek and Atzma Yehudit MK. The MK's Minister of Knesset. Responding to the Jerusalem attack, Har Malek said there was no difference between Gaza and Jenin and between Khan Yunis and Ramallah. In the face of such a reality, the only solution is conquest, expulsion, and settlement. That's the American way. Only in this way we will restore security to the people of Israel and uproot terrorism, she wrote. Bunch of batshit crazy ass people got their own country. And nukes. Don't forget they got those nukes. The nukes of hazard. So yeah, vow revenge is, in other words, they're just going to keep, murdering and torturing them and stuff. So business as usual. And before all this was on Sunday. The Hamas responded to Trump saying it was ready to immediately sit at the negotiating table. So Hamas said on Sunday that it's ready to immediately sit at the negotiating table following a post on Truth Social from Trumpy that demanded the Palestinian group agree to his terms for a Gaza ceasefire deal. They didn't say they were going to accept it. They said, we'll sit down. Everyone wants the hostages home. Everyone wants this war to end. The Israelis have accepted my terms. It is time for Hamas to accept it as well. Yeah, so they come to the table, and then the table gets blown up because Israel's out there blowing shit up. I've warned Hamas about the consequences of not accepting. This is my last warning. There will not be another one. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Fucking in the House memo to... Oh, Jesus. While Trump claimed Israel had agreed to the terms, Haaretz reported that Bibi said, still considering it, and that the full proposal hasn't yet been conveyed to Israel. A source in contact with the U.S. administration expressed reservations about the potential for a deal, saying that it appeared Washington was still allowing Bibi to realize his ambitions since the proposal didn't include a guarantee for a full Israeli withdrawal and an end to the genocidal war, making Hamas unlikely to agree. Oh, wait, you want us to cease fire? You don't want a ceasefire. You want us to cease fire. Well, don't cease fucking yourself, because you can go into that. That's probably what they said in their own special way. According to a report from Axios, a new proposal was sent to Hamas through an Israeli peace activist by U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. The proposal would involve Hamas releasing all remaining Israeli captives, both dead and alive, in exchange for the release of 2,500 to 3,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails. There would also be a ceasefire and an end to Israel's current military operations, and the two sides would begin negotiations on a permanent ceasefire. That ain't going to happen. The Axios report said that if Hamas responded positively, they'll probably get shot. I mean, the ceasefire would continue as long as negotiations did, and that Trump would work to end the conflict. But Hamas has reason to be skeptical of such an arrangement since Israel violated a similar deal just this year, and the U.S. never increased the pressure on Israel to agree to a ceasefire deal after Hamas released Eaton Alexander, an Israeli-American IDF soldier who was captured on October 7th, 2023. Dropsite News reporter Jeremy Scahill said that a senior Hamas official informed him that the U.S. proposal lacks a comprehensive framework. A senior Hamas official told me that the Trump concept proposed to Hamas was that they release all Israeli captives immediately as an initial gesture, and Trump would promise to call, oh, you gonna trust Trump? Trump would promise to call for an end to the war and push Israel to negotiate terms. No formal framework was provided, Scahill wrote on the tweeters. Hamas has said repeatedly it is ready to negotiate a comprehensive deal that involves releasing all Israelis at once, but the terms matter. And the Hamas official cited the Eaton Alexander situation where Trump did not uphold the U.S. agreement after he was released from Gaza, Scahill added. Hamas said in its statement that it was ready to discuss the release of all prisoners in exchange for a clear declaration to end the war, a total withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and creation of a committee of independent Palestinians to run the Gaza Strip. Hamas added that it demands a guarantee that the enemy will openly and explicitly commit to what is agreed upon so that previous experiences of reaching agreements that are later rejected or overturned will not be repeated. So they want guarantees from Israel. Good luck with that. Just keep fighting, guys. I know it's easy for me to say in my orange shirt over here with my fake background, but if they give in to these terms, then they're just going to getting wiped out, and the U.S. will back them because that's their bitch, right? That's their bitch. So he's telling you about how the Israeli High Court said, you know what, you need to feed these prisoners. And, you know, I know, right? You would think, oh, shit, they're not even feeding the prisoners? No. Well, not that much. Israeli court rules food given to Palestinian prisoners does not meet legal standards. The Israeli Supreme Court ruled on Sunday that the food provided by prison authorities to Palestinian prisoners does not meet the standards set by law. The court stated that there is concern that the current quantities of food given to Palestinian prisoners do not adequately ensure compliance with legal standards. The Association for Civil Rights in Israel, I didn't know that was a thing, ACRI, had filed a petition to the Supreme Court against the prison authorities' policy regarding meals served to prisoners. Judge Daphna Barak Arez said the prosecution's arguments were not convincing compared with the difficulties raised by the petitioners. She ruled that the prison authority must take steps to ensure the standards are met. The court added that this is not a matter of comfort or luxury, but of basic living conditions required by law. Prisoners across Israeli jails have long complained of a deliberate policy of starvation imposed by the prison authority under the guidance of far-right National Security Minister, that little cutie pie, Itamar Ben-Gvir. So their own Supreme Court had to tell them, feed people, you evil motherfuckers, right? You may have heard about Yemen going after Israel as Yemen drones strike Israeli airport sensitive Dimona site. Ugh, I'm allergic to bad news, apparently. Damn, I should be sneezing my head off. Although this is, I don't know. The Yemeni armed forces announced yesterday that they carried out a new military operation inside occupied Palestine, marking the second such strike in as many days. According to the military statement, 3 drones targeted Lod Airport in Jaffa, Ramon Airport in al-Rashrash, and a sensitive site in Dimona. The statement confirmed that the operation successfully achieved its objectives. The Yemeni armed forces praised what they described as blessed jihadist operations in Al-Quds and Gaza, stressing that they highlighted the vitality of the Palestinian people and the ability of their youth to carry out effective strikes while exposing the fragility of the enemy's security measures despite its tightened precautions. Reaffirming their support for the Palestinian struggle, the Yemeni statement added, "We will continue to back you until the aggression is halted and the siege is lifted. May your efforts in resistance be blessed, and may God guide your strikes." Israeli Channel 14 confirmed that an explosion occurred inside Ramon Airport, or Ramon, as a result of a Yemeni drone strike, while eyewitnesses reported hearing a powerful blast in the area. The Yemeni armed forces continue to launch operations targeting Israel in support of the Palestinians in Gaza and in response to Israel killing the Yemeni prime minister and several ministers in airstrikes on Sana'a. Israeli Channel 14 confirmed yesterday that an explosion had occurred inside Ramon Airport as a result of a Yemeni drone strike, while witnesses reported that a powerful explosion was heard across the area. Meanwhile, Israeli media clarified that sirens were activated in the vicinity of the airport, noting that the Israeli authorities closed the airspace around the facility. Israeli media additionally reported that sirens sounded across southern Israel following another drone attack by the Yemeni forces, while additional sirens were activated in the southern Negev region over concerns of a potential drone infiltration near the Dimona area and the Rotem industrial zone. An Israeli media platform reported that this drone was aimed at the Dimona Nuclear Research Center, but was intercepted. On September 7th, the Yemeni Armed Forces announced that their UAV unit, their drones, conducted a major operation striking multiple targets. They stated that their drones achieved a direct impact on Ramon Airport in the Negev, bringing air traffic to a halt, in addition to further attacks on various sites in al-Rashrash, Ascalon, Isdud, and Jaffa. The Yemeni Armed Forces warned all aviation companies that airports inside the occupied Palestinian territories are unsafe and will be targeted continuously, stressing that they bear no responsibility for any consequences that may result. We're going to blow up your shit. You better get out of there. I'm just saying. The Israeli daily Ma'ariv suggested that the drone strike launched from Yemen on September 7th, which hit the arrival hall of Ramon Airport, could carry serious symbolic and visual repercussions, emphasizing that its effect lies less in physical damage and more in the significant moral and symbolic weight it places on aviation traffic. The paper noted that international media might mistakenly report an attack on another Israeli airport, such as Ben Gurion, and that the strike on Ramon Airport could push foreign airlines, including those that only just resumed flights to Israel, to reassess their choices. That's right. When you don't have the physical might, use the psychological might. That's what it's all about. Because psychological torture is much more effective and long-lasting. I wouldn't know that personally. I've heard that somewhere. Meanwhile, Spain said enough of these bitches. Spain announces 9 measures against Israel, including arms embargo. Muy bueno. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez yesterday announced 9 measures against Israel to stop the genocide in Gaza, pursue its perpetrators, and support the Palestinian population as the war approaches the 2-year mark. At the heart of the package is a royal decree law to formalize and make permanent Spain's embargo on the purchase and sale of weapons, ammunition, and military equipment to Israel. Although the embargo has been applied de facto since October 2023, Sanchez said the decree would remove any ambiguity after months of controversy and doubt. Additional measures include banning ships carrying fuel for the Israeli army from docking in Spanish ports and denying access to Spanish airspace for state aircraft transporting defense material bound for Israel. Spain will also bar entry to individuals directly involved in a genocide, human rights violations, and war crimes in Gaza, a prohibition that could apply to Israel's Bibi and members of his shitty government. Madrid will also prohibit imports from Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank and Gaza, while restricting consular services to Spanish citizens living in those settlements to a bare minimum. On the humanitarian front, Sanchez pledged enhanced support for the Palestinian Authority, including a larger Spanish presence in the EU mission in Rafah and new cooperative projects. Spain will also contribute an additional 10 million euros to UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, and increase its overall humanitarian aid to Gaza to 150 million euros by next year. These 9 measures will be implemented immediately, Sanchez said. In response to Spain's announcement, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar criticized the measure as anti-Semitic. There it is. Ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding. While his government said it would bar left-wing Spanish Labor Minister Yolanda Diaz and Youth Minister Cira Rego from entering Israel. The Spanish government immediately hit back at Saar's comments. The Spanish government strongly rejects the false and slanderous accusations of anti-Semitism made by the Israeli government against Spain and the Spanish people, as well as the acceptable ban on 2 members of the Spanish government entering Israel, an official statement read. The measures relating to the inhumane situation in Gaza and the West Bank, announced today by the president of the Spanish government, reflect the majority opinion of Spanish society and are adopted within the framework of its sovereignty and in line with its defense of peace, human rights, and international law. The Prime Minister opened his address on Monday by recalling the countless persecutions and injustices endured by the Jewish people throughout history, including the Holocaust. He expressed Spain's support for Israel's existence and condemned the Hamas attacks on October 7th, but he drew a distinction between legitimate defense and Israel's current actions. One thing is to protect your country and your society, and another very different thing is to bomb hospitals and starve innocent children. He argued that what Netanyahu's government claims is a military response to terrorism has ended up becoming a new wave of illegal occupations and an unjustifiable attack on the Palestinian civilian population. Sanchez said the campaign is now widely recognized as genocide, citing the opinion of the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine, Francesca Albanese, and other legal experts. Sanchez has been among the most outspoken European leaders in criticizing Israel's onslaught on Gaza and was the first EU diplomat to call it out as genocidal. 63,000 dead, 59,000 wounded, 250,000 people at risk of acute malnutrition, and nearly 2 million displaced, half of them children, he said. This is not self-defense. It is extermination of a defenseless people and a flagrant breach of humanitarian law. Exactly, sure is. At the very least. Sanchez criticized the international community for failing to halt the war, accusing major powers of being mired between indifference and complicity with Bibi. While acknowledging that Spain cannot stop the offensive on its own, he insisted it would not give up trying. The prime minister recalled Spain's recognition of the state of Palestine last year as part of earlier efforts and said the new measures were designed to take another step forward to stop the genocide in Gaza, pursue its perpetrators, and support the Palestinian people. Although he admitted the measures would not be enough to halt Israel's invasion or its alleged war crimes, Sanchez said they were intended both to increase pressure on Bibi's government and to ease some of the suffering in Gaza. He concluded, "I want Spanish society to know that faced with one of the most infamous episodes of the 21st century, your country, Spain, was on the right side of history." Sanchez has repeatedly accused the EU of double standards for failing to apply sanctions to Israel. It makes absolutely no sense that we've passed 18 sanction packages on Russia for its aggression against Ukraine and Europe, but with double standards haven't even been able to suspend the association agreement with Israel when they are flagrantly violating Article 2 in terms of human rights, he said this past June. Madrid has been among a minority of EU states, including Slovenia, Ireland, and the Netherlands, that have led efforts calling for the EU to review the EU-Israel Association Agreement since February of last year. In their meeting in mid-July, the EU's 27 foreign ministers failed to agree on the suspension of the controversial agreement, which covers both trade and political relations. They also failed to agree on 9 other possible measures against Israel put forward after it was found to have breached the human rights provisions of the trade agreement. Gee, I wonder why they failed. The measures that would have been agreed included full suspension of the agreement, suspension of its preferential trade provisions, an arms embargo, sanctions on Israeli ministers, and imposing a ban on trade with Israeli settlements in occupied Palestine. Slovenia last month became the first EU country to take action independently, imposing a full arms embargo on Israel. Later in August, Germany announced the suspension of military exports to Israel that could be used in Gaza in response to Israel's plan to fully occupy the Palestinian enclave. Sweden and the Netherlands have also called on the EU to suspend the agreement with Israel over the continued Gaza siege and its ban on the UN's humanitarian aid operations. But Dutch Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp resigned last month, citing his government's failure to impose additional sanctions on Israel. So Spain is definitely on the right side of history when it comes to this. And we hope to see more countries follow suit and come to their senses and stop being scared of Zionists lurking around in the shadows, telling them what to do. Meanwhile, in France, things are, France is a little bit verklempt. French government collapses after Prime Minister Bayrou ousted in a confidence vote. They said his name was Bayou. Why did they put Bayrou? Stop it. And he looked like Mel Brooks a little bit. French Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks. France Prime Minister François Bayrou has lost a confidence vote in Parliament hours after warning that the country was facing life-threatening debt deepening a political crisis and handing President Emmanuel Macron the task of finding a fifth prime minister in less than 2 years. God, man, sounds like some football teams. Bayrou, who has been in office for 9 months, will tender his resignation today, his office said. Macron's office said a new appointment will be made in the coming days. The National Assembly voted yesterday to bring down the Bayrou-led government over its plans to cut about 44 billion euros, or about 52 billion smackaroonies, to reduce the country's debt. Bayrou had staked his leadership on securing parliamentary approval for a budget plan that aimed to slash a deficit almost double the European Union's 3% ceiling and a debt load worth 114% of GDP. The 74-year-old leader is the sixth prime minister under President Macron since the head of state was first elected in 2017. His ousting would leave Macron with a new domestic headache at a time when he is leading diplomatic efforts on the Ukraine war. Yeah, and he's also supposed to be at the UN in 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks, to, recognize Palestine. Before the move, Bayrou warned lawmakers, you have the power to bring down the government, but you do not have the power to erase reality. Reality will remain relentless. Expenses will continue to rise, and the burden of debt, already unbearable, will grow heavier and more costly. Mark my words. But Parliament rejected his appeal with 364 votes against him and only 194 in favor. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, leader of the hard left France Unbowed, posted on the tweeters, Macron is now on the front line facing the people. He too must go. The left bloc holds a majority in the 577-seat parliament, but not enough to form a government on its own. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen also called for a snap election. This moment marks the end of the agony of a phantom government. For Bayrou, this is a crushing defeat. Certainly a large majority voted against him and his austerity budget, said Al Jazeera's Natasha Butler, reporting from Paris. She noted that opponents on both the far right and the left announced the plan as unfair. Talk about uniting people, saying it targeted some of the poorest people in France. Even some conservatives, usually close to Bayrou, turned against him, making it an incredibly damning day for the former French prime minister in the National Assembly. Butler added that it was another embarrassing moment for Macron. This is his second prime minister that he's lost in a year since his surprise snap election last year, she explained. Recalling that Michel Barnier lasted only 3 months before being forced out by Parliament. Man, they're trying to compete with South Korea and swapping out leaders as quick as possible. Looking ahead, Butler said Macron faces limited options. He's not got many good choices. In fact, most of his choices are bad ones, she said, warning that the president must now navigate mounting social unrest. France is expected to see strikes and protests from trade unions in the coming weeks, adding further strain on an already embattled government. Hugo Droschen of the University of Nottingham told Al Jazeera that Macron's options are narrowing. Either he goes again for somebody from the center-right party, or he reaches out to the socialists, he explained, but warned that would require budget compromises. Droschen also noted that the stakes extend far beyond France's domestic policies. What's up, CBC voter? Good to see you, buddy. The biggest concern, at least from the financial markets, is not so much what's going to be done, but that something gets done. They want a prime minister and a budget that actually addresses these issues, he said. He warned that if Macron fails to act swiftly, France risks deeper political paralysis and growing frustration among an already disillusioned public. What I think the French people are expecting is something to happen. Can Macron name somebody who can find a way through? That would reassure everybody. That's the big challenge, he added. The next government's immediate task will be to push through a budget in an increasingly fractured parliament, the same challenge that ultimately sank Bayrou. Macron, already facing growing calls to resign, has ruled out dissolving parliament and is instead bracing for yet another political battle. So France, there he is, the French Mel Brooks, kind of, a little bit. Maybe he was a little bit younger. But I wonder how the UN declaration thing is supposed to happen on the 22nd this month, which is 2 weeks from yesterday. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. There may not even be a government by that time. So we turn our attention over to the Russia-Ukraine conflict as Russia pounds Ukraine with the largest air attack hits key government buildings. Russia has hit Ukraine with the largest air attack since the war began, killing at least 4 people across the country and setting dozens of buildings on fire in the capital, Kiev, including the main seat of the government, according to officials. Russian forces launched 810 drones and 13 missiles in the overnight attack on Sunday, Ukraine's Air Force said, causing damage across the north, south, and east of the country, including the cities of Zaporizhzhia, Kryvyi Rih, and Odessa. Thank you, Odessa, for being normal, as well as in the Sumy and Chernihiv regions. Kryvyi? These words. In Kiev, Mayor Vitaly Klitschko meets the Klitschkos. There, said a young woman and her 2-month-old son were killed when a 9-story residential building was hit. Rescuers were still looking for the body of a third person believed to have been killed in the attack and buried under the rubble, he added. Klitschko said buildings in the Darnitskaya and Sviatoshniskia districts were also hit. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. The attack, which also knocked out power in the city, left smoke rising from the roof of Ukraine's main cabinet building in the historic Percherskia district, housing the offices of its ministers. For the first time, the government building was damaged by an enemy attack, including the roof and upper floors, said Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko. We will restore the buildings, but lost lives cannot be returned. The world must respond to this destruction not only with words, but with actions. There is a need to strengthen sanctions pressure, primarily against Russian oil and gas, she said. And then she also said, Zig Heil. Oh, I'm sorry. That's just came out. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the strikes and issued a new appeal to allies to strengthen his country's air defenses. Such killings now, when real diplomacy could have already begun long ago, are a deliberate crime and a prolongation of the war, Zelensky said between rails on the tweeters. Russian attacks on Ukraine have increased in recent days, even as United States President and shithead-in-chief Trumpy stepped up diplomacy to end the 3.5-year war, although those efforts have not yet been successful. Thought you could do this in 24 hours. That's what he campaigned on. Russia's Ministry of Defense said it had carried out strikes on Ukraine's military-industrial complex. Do it on ours, too. And transport infrastructure, according to the TASS news agency. Both sides denied targeting civilians. Pardon me. Trumpy said Sunday that he's ready to move to a second phase of sanctioning Russia, the closest he has come to suggesting he is on the verge of ramping up sanctions against Moscow or its oil buyers over the war in Ukraine. He did not elaborate. However, until now, Trumpy, who met with Putin last month, has resisted imposing tougher sanctions on Russia because he knows they don't work. The U.S. envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, said on Sunday that the Russian attack looks like an escalation in the conflict. Wimpy, what's up, Max? Can I pay you today for a hamburger on Tuesday? Well, it is Tuesday. And I guess it's Hamburger Tuesday. Everything happens on Tuesday. That's great. That's crazy. The attack was not a signal that Russia wants to diplomatically end this war, Kellogg wrote on the tweeters. Ukraine's European allies also condemned the attack, including Sweden, Italy, and Denmark. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said in a statement he was appalled. He clutched all of a sudden these pearls appeared around his neck. And he clutched him. And he was appalled by Russia's latest brutal overnight assault on Kiev and across Ukraine. Al Jazeera's Zian Basravi, reporting from Ukraine's central region of that place, said the attack triggered air raids. All right, we'll try it. Dnipropetrovsk Dnipropetrovsk said the attack triggered air raids alerts across most of the country. In Kiev and the surrounding regions, the siren sounded for more than 11 hours. What we see here is the increase in the use of unmanned aerial vehicles in Russia, which gives them a capacity to spread widely across the country, and these are certainly indicative of the fact that Russia is escalating attacks, Basharavi said. Tens of explosions shook the central Ukrainian city Kremenchuk, cutting power to parts of it, while strikes on Kryvyi Rih, Zelensky's hometown in the same region, targeted transport and urban infrastructure, regional officials said. In the southern city of Odessa, civilian infrastructure and residential buildings were damaged, with fires breaking out in several apartment blocks. Regional Governor Ola Kipper said on the Telegram, on the battlefield, Russian forces are making slow but steady gains, according to Al Jazeera. Russian forces have been expanding the boundaries all across the Eastern Front to try to create a so-called gray zone, he said. The Ukrainian military is saying that Russia is now shifting its tactics. It's recently started to deploy small, experienced Marine units, they say, that are trying to avoid direct clashes with the Ukrainian forces that are putting up stiff resistance. The front line is moving in Russia's favor, but Ukrainian forces have slowed that advance since the offensive began in March to a crawl at this stage, Basravi said. The Russian Defense Ministry said on Sunday that its troops had taken control of the village of Koroshe in that region, Dnipropetrovsk region. Al Jazeera could not independently verify the battlefield reports. Meanwhile, the commander of Ukraine's drone forces, Robert Brovdy, now see, well, he has some regular ass names, said that Ukraine attacked the Druzhba oil pipeline in Russia's Bryansk region. Brovdy posted on Telegram that comprehensive fire damage was inflicted on the pipeline. The transit pipeline delivers Russian oil to Hungary and Slovakia, which continue to buy energy supplies from Russia even after other European Union nations cut ties following Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. What's up, Yippa? A spokesperson for Hungarian refiner MOL said that crude oil deliveries to the country were running on schedule. A spokesperson for Slovak pipeline operator Transpetrol did not immediately respond to an email request for comment. Moscow has not commented on the Ukrainian claim. Russian air defense units reported that they destroyed at least 69 Ukrainian drones overnight. Nice. According to the RIA Novosti state news agency. So, yeah. You see, Trump will go after Hamas. You know, Trump will go after Venezuela. But when it comes to Russia, he is just straight pussy. He is. He is just a fucking, well, you said that I could do about it. You know what's the difference between Russia and Hamas and Russia and Venezuela? Russia got nukes. Russia's got a lot of nukes, probably more nukes than the United States. To be honest with you. So he can talk tough to Russia all he wants, but he knows he's full of shit. And that goes with any U.S. president. Biden was full of shit too. He's tough on Putin. It's like, fuck off. They got around the sanctions and they got nukes. So you're pretty much fucked. Softest scrotum skin. Exactly. It's very soft too. Russia said, he's scared of your fucking sanctions, stupid. Russia brushes off threats of new U.S. and EU sanctions. While U.S. and European officials are threatening to impose more sanctions on Russia over the war in Ukraine, the Kremlin is brushing off the possibility, pointing to the fact that Western sanctions have done nothing to stop Russia's military operations so far. In general, one thing can probably be said. This unprecedented number of sanctions that have been imposed against our country over the past 4 years has had no effect, said Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, according to Russia's TASS news agency. No sanctions will be able to force the Russian Federation to change this stalwart position. Exactly. And if Trump's saying otherwise, that's just more shit coming out of Trump's mouth. Peskov's comments came after Trump. He said that he was ready to impose more sanctions on Russia following a heavy Russian bombardment of Ukraine. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent or Bessent, I don't know how you say his fucking name, also said that the U.S. Must partner with the EU to collapse the Russian economy. You dumb motherfuckers. We're now in a race. We are in a race now between how long can the Ukrainian military hold up versus how long can the Russian economy hold up, Bessent said on Sunday. And if the U.S. and the EU can come in, do more sanctions, secondary tariffs on the countries that buy Russian oil, the Russian economy will be in total collapse, and that will bring President Putin to the table. None of that shit's going to happen. Despite the threats from U.S. officials, Peskov focused his criticism on Ukraine and its European supporters. We intend to continue moving in line with the peacekeeping efforts that the U.S. is undertaking, President Trump personally. We welcome these efforts, and we hope that these efforts will continue to be applied in a constructive manner, he said. Actually, sanctions are an agenda that is diligently supported, first of all, by the Kiev regime and also by European countries. And of course, they are doing everything possible to draw Washington into their orbit and impose these sanctions. Various representatives from Washington also make relevant statements, and we take them into account, Peskov added. A peace deal seems increasingly unlikely as Ukraine and its Western backers continue to insist on a plan to deploy troops to a post-war Ukraine, an idea Russia has made clear it would never accept. However, the Kremlin has continued to praise the Trump administration for its efforts to negotiate, and Putin has not ruled out the possibility of reaching an agreement, just not that agreement. He's like, you're not putting troops into Ukraine after we kick ass, bitches. We will kick your ass. And then World War III. That's WW. And then 3. So it looks like 3 W's. Or 3 3s. You decide. So, as we talk about BRICS, of course, that involves Russia. And they've been skirting these sanctions have done little to nothing. It's all people just talking and trying to make it sound like they're trying to stop Russia when they know that's not going to happen at all. So, and Iran knows that too. As Iranian president proposes BRICS mechanism to counter U.S. sanctions. There's Putin. He says, "You'll see flag. Flag is nice. Yes, you like that. I do not know about disco letters up here, but I do like flag. Yes." He goes, "Yeah, it's a nice flag. Whatever. What the fuck?" Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian yesterday proposed the creation of a mechanism within the BRICS group to counter economic sanctions imposed unilaterally by the U.S. and other Western nations. BRICS can develop a joint mechanism to support its members in the face of illegal unilateral sanctions and to continue developing their economies without being subjected to unfair political pressure, he said. The Iranian president made the statement during a video call at the virtual BRICS summit on Monday. Iran has endured decades of U.S. sanctions that restrict the Islamic Republic's access to global markets, including its main export, oil. Washington has imposed sanctions on Tehran for its nuclear program and has bombed Iranian nuclear facilities as part of Israel's unprovoked 12-day war. The virtual conference was organized by Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to discuss the current trade policies of U.S. President Trump. The U.S. has long imposed economic sanctions on Russia and Iran, while Trump has imposed heavy tariffs on products exported by BRICS members, including China, Brazil, and India, since taking power in Washington in January. Lula emphasized that secondary sanctions, which punish countries and companies trading with countries already under U.S. sanctions, hinder the strengthening of trade relations between BRICS countries. Probably that's why they do it. Imposing extraterritorial measures threatens our institutions. Secondary sanctions limit our freedom to promote trade among friendly countries. And the policy of divide and rule is the new strategy of unilateral action. BRICS must demonstrate that cooperation is above all else, Lula stated. The BRICS group was founded in 2006 by Russia, China, India, and Brazil, and South Africa joined in 2011. Since 2024, additional countries have joined BRICS. The trade bloc accounts for over half of the world's population, nearly 30% of global GDP, and more than 50% of global economic growth. Chinese President Xi Jinping said during his speech at the virtual summit that BRICS member states should leverage their strengths and deepen trade cooperation. If we act responsibly and cooperate with each other, BRICS will surely withstand all the tests of the changing international situation and steadily advance toward long-term development, Xi stated. In a violent storm, one finds strong grass, and in a fire, one finds true gold. What? That doesn't make any sense. Russian President Vladimir Putin is also set to attend. However, India will not be represented by Prime Minister Modi. Instead, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is this first name? To speak at the summit. Trump recently imposed an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods in response to New Delhi's expanded purchases of Russian oil since the start of the war in Ukraine in 2022. The additional tariffs stack on top of the 25% country-specific tariffs. Trump claims he wishes to put pressure on Putin to reach an agreement to end the Ukraine conflict, which is in its fourth year. But you said you could get it done in 24 hours. I'm still waiting for that. Meanwhile, the U.S. War Department, yes, the Department of Defense is now officially the Department of War. I'll say that part is newsworthy only because of how stupid it is. I'm not calling it that. The Defense Department is expected to release a national, although the Department of War is probably more accurate. Fuck it, I'll just say. The newly rebranded Department of War is expected to release a national defense strategy that prioritizes missions in the homeland and the Western Hemisphere over countering China and Russia. A shift from the Pentagon's policy in recent years, which has placed China as the top priority, according to a report from Politico. The report said that the new NDS had been placed on the desk of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who could make changes to the document before it's released. The news comes as the U.S. military has been deploying National Guard troops in U.S. cities and has sent an armada of warships near Venezuela in the Caribbean, where it recently bombed a boat allegedly carrying drugs. It's drugs. Yeah, it is honest, I guess. It's ironic. They lie all the time, but they're honest about that. Not funny. The Politico report said the new NDS was drafted by Elbridge Colby, the Pentagon's policy chief, who has a long history of urging the U.S. to prioritize China and prepare for war over Taiwan despite the risk of nuclear war. Colby also drafted the 2018 NDS, which outlined the shift away from counterterrorism in the Middle East to countering China and Russia. Colby's 2021 book, The Strategy of Denial, argued that the U.S. should scale back elsewhere to focus its military on denying China the ability to seize Taiwan. Last year, Colby wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal suggesting that if a significant change were not made, it might be too late for the U.S. and Taiwan to build up the capabilities to fend off a Chinese invasion. I haven't yet given up hope, but the U.S. and Taiwan must dramatically change course or we won't have a real option to defend the island, he wrote. The 2022 NDS released by the Biden administration labeled China as the top priority, and since then the Pentagon has referred to China as the pacing threat. U.S. military leaders have spoken openly about the fact that the U.S. has been preparing for a war with China over Taiwan. The new NDS that deprioritizes China doesn't mean that the U.S. will slow its military buildup in the Asia Pacific, since China is still expected to be the top priority outside of the Western Hemisphere. Colby is also overseeing the Pentagon's Global Posture Review, which could lead to U.S. troop reductions in Europe and the Middle East. potentially allowing more troops to be deployed to Latin America and Asia. I did not have, I knew he would probably go after Venezuela, but I didn't think he would take on the whole fucking South America. That's just wild. But here we are. So, like we said, they're not deprioritizing them per se. Meanwhile, back here at home, we got these troops in D.C. and they're threatening Chicago. We'll tell you about the Chicago thing in just a second here. But as far as D.C., though, it may be over there because Trump's D.C. emergency to expire as Congress declines extension. A bird. The emergency security order enacted by Trump in Washington, D.C. will expire on the 10th, which is tomorrow, I believe, after congressional leaders opted not to extend the measure, Politico reported yesterday. Trump invoked the public safety emergency on August 11th, deploying National Guard troops and federalizing parts of the Metropolitan Police Department. He vowed the campaign would not stop in the Capitol, pledging to restore order in other cities he described as crime-ridden, including New York, Chicago, Baltimore, Oakland, and Los Angeles. The 30-day authorization is set to lapse tomorrow. 3 congressional sources told Politico that House leaders have no plans to bring an extension vote to the floor. While Republicans could request one, Democrats have the procedural means to block it. We'll see if they actually do that. Meanwhile, ICE Operation Midway Blitz underway as authoritarian Trump targets Chirac. Good luck. Come to Chicago. Get your ass kicked. After several days of Trumpy threatening a militarized invasion of Chicago, his administration yesterday announced Operation Midway Blitz, claiming it is in honor of a young woman allegedly killed by an undocumented immigrant accused of drunk driving about 140 miles south of the Illinois city. So, of course, that warrants bringing in the fucking National Guard. U.S. Department of Homeland Security unveiled the immigration operation with a nearly 5-minute video featuring Michelle and Joe Abraham, whose 20-year-old daughter, Katie, was killed in a hit-and-run crash in Urbana in January. The alleged driver, a Guatemalan national, was arrested in Texas a few days later. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said the ICE operation will target the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens in Chicago. Even though the Libertarian Cato Institute revealed in June that 65% of immigrants booked by the agency under Trump had no criminal convictions, and over 93% were never convicted of violent crimes. Like Trump has in recent days, McLaughlin took aim at Democratic Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, saying that he and his fellow sanctuary politicians released Tren de Aragua gang members, rapists. Tren de Aragua, that just sounds like ISIS, that they're just making shit up at this point. I know it's a real thing, but is it a real threat? No. Kidnappers and drug traffickers on Chicago streets, putting American lives at risk and making Chicago a magnet for criminals. The criminals are in the government. Come on. Everybody knows that. While Chicagoans have made their thoughts on a federal invasion clear, carrying signs that said no Trump, no troops, no Nazis, no kings. During a weekend protest, McLaughlin said that Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem have a clear message. No city is a safe haven for criminal, illegal aliens. If you come to our country illegally and break our laws, we'll hunt you down, arrest you, deport you, and you will never return. Pritzker and Chicago's Democratic Mayor Brandon Johnson have forcefully pushed back against Trump's, well, I don't know how forcefully. They pushed back against Trump's threats to launch a major anti-immigrant immigration operation in the city and possibly deploy the National Guard, as he has done in D.C. and Los Angeles. In a New York Times opinion piece published hours before the widely anticipated DHS announcement, Johnson argued that lowering crime rates here does not require an occupation of our city by armed members of the National Guard, as the White House continues to threaten us with. Chicagoans, including survivors of violence, have spoken out against such an extreme measure. If President Trump had listened to the city's leaders, he would recognize that Chicago just experienced record low homicide numbers making this the safest summer since the 1960s, a result of effective collaboration between communities and law enforcement, wrote the mayor, who signed an executive order ahead of the federal operation and is raising a family in Austin on the west side, one of the parts of our city where gun violence is most pervasive. My administration has managed to make progress in crime reduction with 3 interconnected strategies: effective and law-abiding policing, violence prevention, and addressing the root causes of crime, Johnson explained. But, things are still shitty, though. Our violence prevention work includes programs that employ former gang members to de-escalate conflicts, as well as initiatives that connect people to jobs and resources. We have directed funding to neighborhoods that have suffered from chronic and disinvestment to create jobs, provide mental health services, and more. We are on track to build, rehab, or preserve over 10,000 units of affordable housing, he continued. We don't need the National Guard. We just need to invest in what works. In a Monday statement, Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates acknowledged the successful efforts of our mayor in reducing crime and investing in our community, and similarly stressed that whatever Trump is spending on his raids is better spent on building affordable housing, reopening school libraries, and funding social workers to support children through the trauma this administration is inflicting on an entire generation who are worried every day if they will ever see their parents again. As a history teacher, I can tell you that history will not look kindly on Donald Trump or the individuals who are acting as his personal army, Davis Gates also said. For weeks, the people of Chicago have made it clear that we do not need federal agents in our city, whether that is to separate immigrant families or racially profile in our black neighborhoods, even though ICE has been doing shit here the whole time. You can tell because the Home Depots have nobody in front of them, no workers out there. And usually there's people out there all the time. Chicago might have been built to keep our communities divided, but we are coming together now like working people do against any bad boss in radical solidarity to keep each other safe, the union leader added. Trump and his departments of alphabet boys and National Guard troops aren't welcome and aren't needed in Chicago. Congressional Democrats who represent Illinois have also denounced the president's targeting of the country's third largest city, including Dick Durbin, the senator, one of the senators here, who took to the chamber's floor on Monday following the DHS announcement. Durbin accused Trump of attacking Chicago for political theater. While the Trump administration hasn't yet provided any update on the involvement of the National Guard after the president moved to rename the U.S. Department of Defense, he took to his Truth Social platform on Saturday morning with an image referenced in the 1979 film Apocalypse Now and said, Chicago, about to find out why it's called the Department of War. There's that Chai-pocalypse now. And there he is there. Read that. Appearing on CBS News, Face the Nation on Sunday, Senator Tammy Duckworth, said that we don't have any indications of them getting ready to send troops into Chicago, but also that the president of the United States essentially just declared war on a major city in his own nation. This is not normal. This is not acceptable behavior. Well, among other non-normal, non-acceptable behaviors, responding to the recent developments in a Monday statement, Vanessa Cardenas, executive director of the national advocacy group America's Voice, said that we have gone from a supposed war on immigrants to a war on Americans. America's Voice has long said that immigration was merely the tip of the spear for this administration to justify and lead an attack on all of us, including violating due process, constitutional rights, and core democratic norms, and pillars such as deploying the military against American communities, she noted. Sadly, all are coming to pass. Cardenas continued, why is the American president openly threatening an American city as he readies the deployment of American troops against those residents? It's not about immigration, just as the D.C. deployment wasn't about crime. Instead, it's for purposes of retribution, sowing fear and dissent, provoking violence, and dividing us as a nation. That sounds about right. Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court just sided with the president in his plans to target indiscriminately and racially profile with impunity, effectively making racial profiling now the law of the land. We'll tell you more about that in a second. She added, I added that part. She added the others. Citing a Monday decision from the Chief Justice, whether calling it authoritarianism or something else, it's clear we are fighting not just for immigrants, but also for a different vision of America that's now imperiled. So I don't know where they're going to send these troops. If they do, maybe it's just an idle threat. But if they do, he'll only have to do it he can only do it for 30 days because it doesn't seem like the Republicans in Congress really care about any of his bullshit anymore. And as we just mentioned there, the U.S. Supreme Court rules immigration agents can now racially profile people. SCOTUS. Immigration officials will now be able to profile people in L.A. based on their skin color, accent, and the language they speak, according to a U.S. Supreme Court ruling yesterday. The decision overrides a temporary restraining order by an L.A. judge that banned federal agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, from having roving patrols, which can detain people without reasonable suspicion based solely on their apparent race or ethnicity, speaking Spanish or English with an accent, presence in a particular location like a bus stop, car wash, or agricultural site, or the type of work a person does. Zelipa! Yes, leave the jewel of the Midwest alone. Exactly. In a 6-3 ruling, Justice Brett M. Kavanaugh wrote a 10-page opinion to explain the decision, saying illegal immigration is especially pronounced in the L.A. area. About 10% of the people in the L.A. region are illegally in the United States, meaning about 2 million illegal immigrants out of a total population of 20 million, he wrote. He had to get a calculator to figure that one out. He said that immigration officers may briefly detain an individual for questioning if they have a reasonable suspicion based on specific articulable facts that the person being questioned is an alien illegally in the United States. In New York, they called that stop and frisk. Under Bloomberg, that was stop and frisk. They were able to do that. They're going to do that too in L.A. He said such stops are reasonable and legal based on the totality of the circumstances. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who dissented, called the decision another grave misuse of our emergency docket. We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost. I dissent. Lawyers at the ACLU of Southern California slammed the decision. It's a devastating setback for our plaintiffs and communities who for months have been subjected to immigration stops because of the color of their skin, occupation, or the language they speak, said senior staff attorney Mohammed Tajar in a public statement. In running to the Supreme Court to request this stay, the government made clear that its enforcement operation in SoCal is driven by race. The statement continues with a promise to continue fighting the racist scheme. We will continue fighting the administration's racist deportation scheme to ensure every person living in Southern California, regardless of race or status, is safe. The case is ongoing in lower courts and could again be appealed to the highest court. In early June, the Trump administration launched immigration raids across L.A. and surrounding counties. During the raids, teams of armed and masked agents pulled up to locations such as car washes, farms, and parks and began seizing individuals on site, often before asking a single question. The raids are part of the Trump administration's agenda to deport hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants. Many legal immigrants have also been detained in the raids because, of course, they are. It's just like the Palestinians, right? Like I said before, 3/4 of the Palestinians in prison are not Hamas, right? This is just an attempt to scare people. keep those divisions going so people don't unite and stop this bullshit. All part of the plan. So we would mention briefly about Venezuela earlier. And so the Department of War guy is in Puerto Rico as U.S. threatens Venezuela again and again. So Captain Haircut here went down there, paid an unannounced visit to Puerto Rico on Monday as Washington expands its military operations in the region targeting drug cartels, officials confirmed. Hexeth was joined by General Dan Kane, the top U.S. military officer, and was welcomed by Puerto Rico's governor, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, who announced the visit on the tweeters. She thanked Trumpy and his administration for recognizing the strategic value Puerto Rico has to the national security of the United States and the fight against drug cartels in our hemisphere perpetrated by narco dictator Nicolas Maduro. They had to get an interpreter because she had Trump's cock in her mouth. The U.S. has long accused Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of leading a cocaine trafficking cartel. Earlier this month, Washington doubled its bounty on Maduro to $50 million in exchange for his capture to face drug charges. The visit follows a U.S. strike last week on an alleged drug smuggling boat from Venezuela, which Trump said killed 11 purported members of the Tren de Aragua bullshit. They ain't even in a gang anymore, gang. The strike, highly unusual in U.S. counter-narcotics efforts, has fueled tensions with Caracas. Venezuelan officials accused the Pentagon of provoking confrontation after U.S. ships were reportedly buzzed in the Caribbean, while Maduro denounced the U.S. military buildup and called for dialogue. Currently, 8 U.S. Navy vessels are engaged in counter-narcotics operations in Latin America, 7 in the Caribbean, and 1 in the Pacific. Washington is also deploying 10 F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico as part of its efforts. So, yeah. More bullshit for Venezuela to deal with. But here's some good news. If you hate Argentina's president, Argentine markets plunge after Milei's party loses in Buenos Aires vote. Look at him. He just looks like a coked out Robin Williams from the 70s. Argentina's markets have tumbled with the peso currency at a historic low after a heavy defeat for President Javier Milei's party at the hands of the Peronist opposition at local elections stoked worries about the government's ability to implement its economic reform agenda. Yesterday, the peso was last down almost 5% against the U.S. dollar at 1,434 per greenback, while the benchmark stocks index fell 10.5%. And an index of Argentine stocks traded on U.S. exchanges lost more than 15%. Some of the country's international bonds saw their biggest falls since they began trading in 2020 after a $65 billion restructuring deal. The resounding victory for the Peronists signaled a tough battle for Milei in national midterm elections on October 26th, when his party is aiming to secure enough seats to avoid overrides to presidential vetoes. The government now faces the difficult choice of whether to allow the peso to depreciate ahead of next month's midterms or spend its foreign exchange reserves to intervene in the FX market, according to Premal Dhawan, head of EM portfolio management at PIMCO. Opting for intervention would likely prove counterproductive as it risks derailing the IMF program and diminishing the country's prospects for future market access to refinance external debt, Dhawan said via email, referring to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Idiots, motherfuckers. The more resources the government allocates to defending the currency, the fewer will be available to meet obligations to bondholders, thereby increasing the risk of default. He said early indications that the government may double down on the current strategy would be a strategic misstep. The 13-point gap in the Buenos Aires province, the PBA, election in favor of the opposition Peronists was much wider than polls anticipated and what the market had priced in. The government setback at the polls adds to recent headwinds for a market that had until recently outperformed its Latin American peers. We had our reservations about the market being too complacent regarding the Buenos Aires election results. The foreign exchange market will undoubtedly be under the spotlight, as any instability there can have a ripple effect on Argentine assets, said Shamalia Khan, head of fixed income for emerging markets and Asia Pacific at UBS, in response to email questions. However, it's important to note that simply using reserves to prop up the currency isn't likely to provide much reassurance to the market, she added. The midterm elections, in my opinion, carry more weight, and their outcome will significantly influence how Argentine assets perform in the coming months. The bond market sell-off saw the country's 2035 issue fall 6.25 cents, on track for its largest daily drop since its post-restructuring issuance in 2020. I don't know what all that business bullshit is, but as long as this face stays angry and his party gets fucked over, that's fine with me. Because fuck that guy and his austerity. Austerity for thee, but not for me, right? That's your news block. It is your news block. Nancy Pelosi once said, "We're capitalists to our bone." And then she took a sip because of the drinking game. But apparently capitalism not that popular anymore. What?
Sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same things that are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Thank you. American approval of capitalism falls to all-time low, according to a Gallup poll. Apparently the game is still popular, but the actual capitalism, not so much. Barely half of Americans view capitalism favorably, while Democratic voters increasingly prefer socialism, a new Gallup poll has indicated. What? You mean being shit libs isn't enough? The survey conducted last month among over 1,000 adults nationwide showed just 54% of respondents had a positive opinion of capitalism, the lowest figure since Gallup began tracking views on the system in the early 2010s, when approval stood at 61%. Support for socialism remained largely unchanged at 39%, Gallup said Monday. Republicans continue to strongly back capitalism, with 74% expressing support, which is kind of surprising. That's still, it's a high number still, but before it was like 80, 90 something percent. Among Democrats, approval has slipped to 42%, lower than half for the first time. At the same time, Democratic support for socialism has climbed to 66%. Even though they say they support it, but they don't actually put that into practice. Up from 50% in 2010, Gallup noted that Democrats have consistently favored socialism over capitalism since 2016, allegedly, and that the gap has continued to widen. I guess we're talking about regular ass Democrats and not like these shit libs that, have actual power. While Americans broadly approve of free enterprise and small business, their views of large corporations have dropped sharply from 58% approval in 2012 to a record low of 37% this year. Democrats in particular express hostility towards big tech, big pharma, and other corporate sectors, with only 17% viewing them positively. Gallup said these shifts explain why openly socialist-leaning politicians can win elections in the U.S. Well, examples include Bernie Sanders, AOC, and New York City mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani, who has proposed opening publicly owned food markets to address supply problems, is running without establishment Democratic backing, despite defeating former Mayor Andrew Cuomo in the party's primary. Cuomo is now campaigning against him as an independent. Yeah, so capitalism. I think people are starting to figure out the difference between capitalism and commerce, right? Capitalism in a nutshell, and somebody said, well, it's not that simple. But yeah, it is kind of that simple. It takes money to make money. That's what capitalism is. If you got money, you can make more money. If you don't have money, you better find a way to get money so you can make money, because it takes money to make money. And more oftentimes, these people who have the money either got it by inheriting it or working some sort of nefarious pyramid schemes. You know, it's what they call crony capitalism. Shifting over to 9/11, which is going to be in a couple of days. On Thursday will be the 24th anniversary of Israel knocking down the buildings. As September 11th victims' lawsuit against Saudi government can go to trial, judge rules. Should be Israel, actually, but information uncovered by plaintiffs has already undermined the FBI's conclusion that 2 U.S.-based Saudi officials unwittingly helped al-Qaeda hijackers after they arrived in America. More than 2 decades after victims of the 9/11 attacks began trying to hold the government of Saudi Arabia responsible for helping the al-Qaeda terrorists who allegedly carried out the plot, a federal judge has ruled that a civil lawsuit against the kingdom can go to trial. Now, you may remember they totally grounded, I don't know if maybe you don't remember, it's been 24 years. On 9/11, planes were grounded all over the country, right? No flights in or out, except for the Saudi royal family who was allowed to leave. No problem. Isn't that interesting? The decision, this is actually from August 28th, I believe. Yes. So this was, but this is just not coming out for some reason. The decision by Judge George B. Daniels of the Southern District of New York in Manhattan represents a crucial victory for survivors of the attacks and relatives of the nearly 3,000 people who were killed. This is a historic win for the families, said a spokesperson for the families, Brett Eagleson, whose father was killed in the World Trade Center. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is going to be held accountable. A spokesperson for the Saudi embassy in Washington, Fahad Nazir, did not respond to requests for comment on the judge's ruling. The Saudi Kingdom, which has long rejected the plaintiff's claims, could still appeal Daniel's decision under special protections that are afforded to foreign governments in federal law. Legal experts said. However, they added that the Saudi government might be willing to consider a settlement with the plaintiffs to avoid the scrutiny of a major trial and the expansive discovery of information that it would bring. Yes, that's what it is. The expansive discovery of information that it would bring. Would it reopen the 9/11, story? Already, information uncovered by plaintiffs has rewritten the history of the 9/11 plot as it was presented in the years after the attacks by the George W. Bush administration and the bipartisan 9/11 Commission. Bandar Bush. Most significantly, the plaintiff's evidence has undermined the FBI's conclusion that 2 Saudi officials in Southern California, one a part-time spy, the other a religious official with diplomatic status, acted unwittingly when they helped the first al-Qaeda hijackers who arrived in the U.S. In an email, the FBI also declined to comment on the judge's ruling. It has long been established that in the years before 9/11, some members of the Saudi royal family and some powerful Saudi officials had supported militant Islamist movements and gave money to Islamic charities that in turn helped finance al-Qaeda and other extremist groups. However, both the FBI and the CIA emphasized in the aftermath of the attacks that the Saudi royal family was an enemy of al-Qaeda and its banished leader, Osama bin Laden, and that senior officials of the government had not assisted the group. The litigation in New York focused on the roles of two lower-level Saudi officials living in the United States. One, Omar al-Bayoumi, who was a middle-aged graduate student in San Diego who had long worked for the Saudi Civil Aviation Agency. The other, Fahad al-Thumari, was a religious official serving in Los Angeles as an imam at a new Saudi-funded mosque and as a diplomat at the Saudi consulate. The FBI quickly determined that Bayoumi met the first 2 hijackers near the mosque soon after they flew into Los Angeles in January 2000, and that he helped them rent an apartment in San Diego, open a bank account, and buy a car. Bayoumi also introduced the two jihadists who knew no one in the United States, spoke virtually no English, and had no experience of living in the West to a group of Muslim men who provided them with crucial support over the months that they lived in the city. Bayoumi moved his family to Birmingham, England in the summer of 2001. Within days of the attacks, he was detained and questioned by the British police at the FBI's request before being allowed to return to Saudi Arabia. In a search of Bayoumi's home, the British authorities turned up documents, notebooks, videotapes, and computer files that they shared with the FBI, officials said, but only in the last 2 years did lawyers for the 9/11 families obtain much of that cash, and then only from the British government. From the start, U.S. investigators were skeptical of Bayoumi's account. In the end, though, the FBI largely accepted his claims that he met the two Qaeda operatives by chance, helped them as he would any compatriots, and had no idea of their terrorist plans. Both Bayoumi and the Saudi government insisted repeatedly that he had no ties to Saudi intelligence. Despite the efforts of a small group of FBI agents to pursue the case, it was eventually closed by the Bureau. The civil lawsuit nearly died in 2016 when Obama vetoed legislation to carve out an exception to the sovereign immunity of foreign governments and permit the families to sue the Saudi kingdom. Congress overrode that veto, however, allowing the suit to go forward. Trump later blocked the families from obtaining classified government documents on the 9/11 investigation, claiming they were state secrets. Joe Biden later reversed that stance and declassified documents that included reporting confirming that Bayoumi was a part-time agent of the Saudi intelligence service. The evidence that plaintiffs' lawyers obtained from the British government has proved even more powerful and included videotapes in which Bayoumi was filmed touring Washington before the 9/11 attacks with two visiting Saudi religious officials who had extensive ties to militants. In one of the tapes, he filmed the U.S. Capitol, describing its layout and security to an unidentified audience. Lawyers for the plaintiffs suggested that Bayoumi and his companions were casing the target for Qaeda plotters. The Saudi government insisted in court that it was a tourist video. In his ruling, Daniels noted that the two sides had different interpretations of almost every piece of evidence, but he endorsed the plaintiff's views of several key exhibits, including a diagram of an airplane found in one of Bayoumi's notebooks. Citing aviation experts, the plaintiff's lawyers said the drawing and the calculations beside it showed how a plane might hit an object on the ground. The Saudis' lawyers suggested that Bayoumi had drawn it while helping his son with homework. Right. So who knows? As this case goes forward, this will be interesting to see what happens, right? So take the OJ case, right? So criminally, he got off, right? If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit. And he was acquitted, right? But they got him in the civil suit, big time. And so there may be more, I don't know, information that comes out of the civil suit. We'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. I hope so. We need more sunlight on all this bullshit too. Did you know that there was resident artists in the World Trade Center about 4 years before the towers fell who had access to the entire building, even places where security wasn't for some reason, and they were all Israelis. Just saying. Meanwhile, in Turkey, more ratchet ass shit going on as Turkish police seize opposition headquarters in Istanbul, not Constantinople. Right, police stormed the Istanbul headquarters of the opposition Republican Party, People's Party, the CHP, yesterday, forcing entry after hours of clashes to escort court-appointed interim chief Gürsel Tekin inside. The Istanbul 45th Civil Court of First Instance had dismissed provincial head Özgür Çelik last week, ruling that delegate votes in the party's 2023 provincial Congress were influenced by alleged bribery. The court threw out the elected board and named former CHP deputy chair Tekin as interim provincial head. a decision rejected by both Selleck and CHP headquarters. Tekin, who earlier said he would not enter the headquarters with police, requested riot police support him after both the CHP headquarters and Selleck rejected his appointment. He arrived to find the building barricaded and occupied by party members, including MPs. Riot police used pepper spray and shields to disperse demonstrators, with CHP member Swat Oskagdas telling Hulk TV, H-A-L-K TV, that officers fired tear gas inch by inch as they moved floor by floor inside the building. There are elderly people and people with asthma on every floor they enter with gas. This is a human rights violation, he said. Protests began on Sunday when the CHP called on Istanbul residents to gather outside its offices after police cordoned off the site. Earlier yesterday, several political influencers who had voiced support for the protests were detained. Internet watchdogs reported bandwidth throttling that slowed access to social media platforms. The CHP denounced the takeover as a siege. In a separate interview with the Financial Times, party leader Oscar Azal, that's OZ squared, you know my boy, accused the government of staging a coup against the future ruling party. They're trying to take over the party that won the last election, was the founding party of the Turkish Republic, is the party leading every poll. We're facing an authoritarian government, and the only option is to resist, he said. In Istanbul. Tekin claimed those resisting him were not CHP members. Nothing can stop us, even if they shoot us, he said. That might stop you. Insisting he would not back down after a water bottle was thrown at him as he attempted a press statement. The party's general headquarters later announced it would close its provincial branch headquarters and operate from another location until a new Istanbul Congress is held. The Istanbul decision has drawn attention to a separate lawsuit in Ankara, the capital, scheduled for next week, which could annul the results of the CHP's 38th Ordinary Congress in 2023 and unseat Özel. Since October 2024, more than 500 CHP members and officials have been detained nationwide, according to state disclosures reviewed by Reuters. In July, the arrests have included Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is Turkish President Erdogan's main rival, and 16 CHP mayors accused of corruption. CHP figures have described the campaign as a political operation to dismantle the party after its victories in last year's local elections. Strong men trying to stop the opposition there in Turkey. As we continue, as we go to Nepal, 19, well, now it's 22 killed in Nepal in Gen Z protests over social media ban and corruption. At least 19 people in 2 cities died yesterday in Nepal's worst unrest in decades, according to authorities, as police in the capital fired tear gas and rubber bullets at protesters trying to storm parliament in anger at a social media shutdown and corruption. Some of the protesters, most of them young, forced their way into the parliament complex in Kathmandu by breaking through a barricade, a local official said, setting fire to an ambulance and hurling objects at lines of riot police guarding the legislature. The police have been firing indiscriminately, one protester told the ANI news agency. They fired bullets which missed me but hit a friend who was standing behind me. He was hit in the hand. More than 100 people, including 28 police personnel, were receiving medical treatment for their injuries. Police officer Shekhar Kanal told Reuters protesters were ferrying the injured to hospital on motorcycles. A government decision last week to block access to several social media platforms, including Meta platforms, Facebook, has fueled anger among the young. About 90% of Nepal's 30 million people use the internet. I didn't think young people used Facebook anymore. I thought that was an old people thing. Officials said they imposed the ban because platforms had failed to register with authorities in a crackdown on misuse, including false social media accounts used to spread hate speech and fake news and commit fraud. 2 of the now 22 people were killed when protests in the eastern city of Itari turned violent, according to police. Home Interior Minister Ramesh resigned from the government after taking moral responsibility for the violence. Another government minister who requested anonymity because he was not authorized to speak with the media told Reuters. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the unrest, which erupted after thousands of young people, including many wearing their school or college uniforms, took to the streets earlier on Monday. Many carried flags and placards with slogans such as "Shut down corruption and not social media," "Unban social media," and "Youths against corruption" as they marched through Kathmandu. Organizers of the protests, which spread to other cities in the Himalayan country, have called them demonstrations by Gen Z. They say the protests reflect young people's widespread frustration with the government's perceived lack of action to tackle corruption and boost economic opportunities. This is the protest by the new generation in Nepal, another protester told ANI. International nonprofit organization Human Rights Watch said the government of Nepal should avoid perceiving these protests primarily through a law enforcement perspective and recognize that demonstrators' mass outpourings of criticism reflect deep frustrations throughout Nepal with entrenched corruption, nepotism, and poor governance. Dingo, what's up, man? Good to see you. Nonviolent means should be utilized before restoring to force, it said in a statement. The use of force is only appropriate if other measures to address a genuine threat have proved ineffective. Police had orders to use water cannons, batons, and rubber bullets to control the crowd, and the army was deployed in the parliament area to bolster law enforcement officers. Muktaram Rijal, a spokesperson for the Kathmandu district office, told Reuters. Violence abated later in the evening, although protesters remained in the area outside Parliament. Police said similar protests were also held in Bharatnagar and Bharatpur in the southern plains and in Pokhara in western Nepal. Many people in Nepal think corruption is rampant, and the Oli government has been criticized by opponents for failing to deliver on its promises to tackle graft or make progress to address longstanding economic issues. The Oli government has said the economy was recovering because of corrective measures it had taken. Thousands of young Nepalis go abroad every year for work and education. Nepal has been politically unstable since it abolished a 239-year-old monarchy back in 2008. There have been 14 governments since 2008, not one of which has completed a full 5-year term. Oli was sworn in to his fourth term last year. Rameshwari Kanal, a former finance secretary, said although job creation is not up to expectations, popular anger appears to stem more from unhappiness with government appointments and its inability to stamp out corruption. Nepal's social media shutdown comes as governments worldwide take steps to tighten oversight of social media, censorship, and big tech due to growing concerns about issues such as misinformation, data privacy, online harm, and national security. National security. There it is. That's the drinking game. Critics say many of these measures risk stifling free expression, but regulators say stricter controls are needed to protect users and preserve social order. The youth. I'm glad the youth is the earned... Zell, you're double dipping. You're over there on Rumble too. I'm glad the youth are seeing through all this bullshit, and as well they should, right? Us older people should know better. Some of us do, but a lot of us still don't. Some of us are being fooled on the regular, and we need to open our eyes. The CIA has always been messing around there to cause trouble for China, even backing the Dolly Kid tongue licker llama. Yeah. Oh, tongue licker. Yeah. Yeah, he was licking kids' tongue. What the fuck? Yeah. Speaking of fuckery, let's go to the UK as UK police arrest nearly 900 anti-genocide protesters in London. How dare you? Toyotes. Yeah, exactly. These Toyotes. What's a ute? British police arrested 890 people on Sunday during a demonstration outside Parliament in London against the proscription of Palestine action. According to a statement by the Metropolitan Police, the Met, 857 protesters were detained under the Terrorism Act 2000 on suspicion of supporting a proscribed organization, with another 33 facing charges for other offenses, including 17 accused of assaulting officers. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Claire Smart, not so smart, claimed protesters engaged in coordinated violence, saying officers had been punched, kicked, spat on, and had objects thrown at them. That's what the cops do to us in America. The arrests came after protesters staged a sit-in in Parliament Square on Saturday, holding placards reading, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action." See this nice lady here. Crowds chanted, "Shame on you," as police carried demonstrators one by one to waiting vans. Witnesses described clashes in which one protester was left bleeding from the face and another shouting that police had injured his back. What the hell? Why are you doing this? Oh, I guess you're at the... Okay. Defend Our Juries, DOJ... the group that organized the protest said 1,500 people took part. It described the police claims of violence as frankly laughable and accused officers of aggression. The group said those arrested included priests, war veterans, healthcare workers, elderly demonstrators, families of Holocaust survivors, and disabled people. Among those detained was Steve Masters, a British Army veteran who was removed from his wheelchair while holding a paper sign before being taken away. He told Middle East Eye, "I served in the Royal Air Force for 19 years. I feel it's important to be here because whether or not you agree with the tactics of Palestine Action and others, the reality is that our government is complicit in genocide at the highest levels." That's right. See, that's the most important part, is the UK government is complicit in genocide. And let's see. So
Free Palestine.
look at this criminal. My God. It's like the Joker. Mike Higgins, 62, who is blind and uses a wheelchair, was arrested again after previously being charged under the Terrorism Act. "And I'm a terrorist. That's the joke of it," he said. "Of course I'll keep coming back. What choice do I have?" The mass arrests bring the total number detained since July to almost 1,600, with 138 people already charged. Many have been released on bail, though it remains unclear how many are still held. Palestine Action was outlawed in July after activists broke into a Royal Air Force base and vandalized planes. I know. Shocking. Paint. Proscription makes membership or public support punishable by up to 14 years in prison. The group has mounted direct actions against Israeli arms manufacturer Elbit Systems UK and other defense contractors. The UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk criticized the UK decision, warning it misuses the gravity impact of terrorism and restricting fundamental freedoms. Palestine Action co-founder Huda Amari called the ban catastrophic for civil liberties, saying it creates a wider, chilling effect on the freedom of speech. Indeed. Blind people. That's your UK police there, arresting blind people. So apparently the Hamas leadership survived the attack. So Israel targets Hamas leadership in attack on Qatar's capital. So I guess the leadership is they're in good shape. Little update to that story. Meanwhile, the U.S. Holocaust Museum removes anti-genocide post amid Gaza atrocities. The Blank Sheet of Britain. A Holocaust museum in Los Angeles is facing backlash after deleting an Instagram post that suggested the phrase "never again" should apply to all people, not just Jews. What? Where are my pearls? Let me clutch. How dare you? The post, shared with Holocaust Museum LA's 24,200 Instagram followers, read, "Never again can't only mean never again for Jews. The slogan never again, long associated with Holocaust remembrance, is also invoked more broadly as a pledge to prevent future genocides." The Instagram message was initially praised online and interpreted by some as an acknowledgement of Palestinian suffering amid Israel's war on Gaza, which numerous United Nations experts, scholars, and rights groups have described as a genocide. It was later deleted and replaced with a statement on Saturday saying the post had been misinterpreted. Oh, here we go. We recently posted an item on social media that was part of a pre-planned campaign intended to promote inclusivity and community that was easily open to misinterpretation by some to be a political statement reflecting the ongoing situation in the Middle East. That was not our intent, it said. Fucking pussies. Holocaust Museum LA also promised to do better and to ensure that posts in the future are more thoughtfully designed and thoroughly vetted. Thoroughly vetted. There you go. The museum, which is currently closed for reconstruction until June next year, quickly faced criticism online after journalist Ryan Grimm of Dropsite News reposted a screenshot of the deleted message, writing, "Speechless, no words for this." Yasmin Taib, a human rights lawyer and progressive strategist, called the museum's move absolutely disgusting, saying that the museum is cowering under pressure from pro-Israel voices. Countless genocide scholars and human rights organizations have confirmed what Israel is doing in Gaza is textbook definition of genocide, Taib told Al Jazeera. It's appalling that a museum established for the purpose of educating the public about genocide and the Holocaust not only refuses to acknowledge the reality of Israel's actions in Gaza, but is removing a social media post that merely stated that never again is not intended just for Jews, in order for it to not be interpreted as a response to the genocide in Gaza. The original, now deleted post did not mention Gaza, but it faced a barrage of pro-Israel comments expressing disapproval, including some that called on donors to stop funding the institution. By deleting the post, that's where it is. Once they started saying, take their money away, time to change the post. By deleting the post and issuing the subsequent statement, the museum sparked accusations of backtracking on a universal anti-genocide principle. We live in a world where the Holocaust Museum has to apologize and retract for simply appearing to sympathize with Palestinians. Palestinian-American activist and comedian Amir Zar told Al Jazeera, if that does not illustrate the historic dehumanization that Arab Americans have had to live with, I don't know what does. Asal Rad, a researcher with the Arab Center, Washington, D.C., called the controversy unbelievable. Palestinians are so dehumanized that they're excluded from never again. Apparently, their genocide is the exception, Rad wrote on the tweeters. Political commentator Hassan Piker also slammed the museum's decision. A real shame that even a tepid general anti-genocide statement was met with unimaginable resistance from his Israel supporters, he wrote. The Holocaust Museum LA did not immediately respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment because they were too fucking pussy. And yeah, they were just... And you're like, well, stop saying pussy, that they're pussy. They are. They're fucking pussies. They're scared. These are scared little bitch pussy people. And that's enough. We retire. We need some cojones. We need brave people, and these are not brave people. Over 1,300 artists vow boycott of Israel film institutions. If you're into that sort of thing, there's the Hulk. More than 1,300 artists, including some Hollywood A-listers, have promised not to work with Israeli film institutions complicit in abuses against Palestinians as Israel intensifies its war on Gaza. In a pledge released yesterday, the artists, who include Olivia Colman, Ayo Edebiri, Mark Ruffalo, Riz Ahmed, Tilda Swinton, and Javier Bardem, decried the unrelenting horror in Gaza, where Israel has killed more than 64,000 Palestinians at least and flattened most of the territory. Inspired by filmmakers united against apartheid who refused to screen their films in apartheid South Africa, we pledge not to screen films, appear at, or otherwise work with Israeli film institutions, including festivals, cinemas, broadcasters, and production companies that are implicated in genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people, the statement read. Examples of being complicit in Israeli rights violations include whitewashing or justifying genocide and apartheid, and or partnering with the government committing them, it added. The pledge cited International Court of Justice rulings that concluded a genocide charge against Israel is plausible and found the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territory is illegal. Over the 23 months of the Gaza war, leading academics, right groups, and United Nations experts have accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians. Genocide, defined by the UN as acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, is one of the gravest war crimes. Palestinian rights advocates have long called for celebrities to use their reach and status to bring awareness to the plight of Palestinians. Oscar-nominated filmmaker Mike Lerner, one of the signatories to the statement, said the pledge was a nonviolent tool to undermine the impunity that Israel enjoys for its conduct against Palestinians. It is the responsibility of every independently minded artist to use whatever powers of expression they possess to support the global resistance to overcome this horror, Lerner said in a statement. Hollywood has been historically pro-Israel, producing movies like the 1960 film Exodus, which valorized the founding of Israel and regularly inserting positive references to the country in blockbusters. But in recent years, many actors and directors have spoken out against Israel's policies, sometimes to the detriment of their own careers. For example, in 2023, actor Susan Sarandon, who signed Monday's pledge, was dropped by her talent agency after attending a Palestine solidarity rally. After the outbreak of the war in Gaza, Melissa Barrera, who also joined the boycott call, lost her role in the horror franchise Scream over social media posts critical of Israel. Still, voices sympathetic to Palestinians continue to grow louder in the film industry. In March, No Other Land, an Israeli-Palestinian film focused on the ongoing destruction of the Palestinian community, Masafer Yada in the occupied West Bank, won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature. More recently, the voice of Hind Rajab, which tells the story of a 5-year-old Palestinian girl who was trapped in a car with slain family members before Israeli soldiers also killed her, received a 23-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival. The movie centers on Rajab's heart-wrenching calls to rescuers while under Israeli fire in Gaza City. Monday's pledge comes as Israel pushes to systematically destroy Gaza City, having already leveled most of the besieged conclave. As filmmakers, actors, film industry workers, and institutions, we recognize the power of cinema to shape perceptions, the statement says. In this urgent moment of crisis, where many of our governments are enabling carnage in Gaza, we must do everything we can to address complicity in that unrelenting horror. So, it's about time members of Hollywood started using their power. I know Susan Sarandon has been on the right side for a long time, not just with this, with the socialism movement in the United States as well. So kudos to her and all those people. I hope it actually does something and it's not just, hey, look at me, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, that kind of sort of thing. So finally, in our propaganda watch, AI, these AI bots, folks, if you're using the AI bots, don't take these things as gospel. Okay, if you're using Grok or if you're using OpenAI, whatever, don't take them seriously. All right, because you may be getting some misinformation at times. OpenAI explains reasons for chatbots hallucinations. What does that mean? The company behind ChatGPT has addressed the persistent problem of artificial intelligence models generating plausible but false statements that it calls hallucinations. Interesting. In a statement on Friday, OpenAI explained that models are typically encouraged to make a guess, however improbable, as opposed to acknowledging that they cannot answer a question. The issue is attributable to the core principles underlying standard training and evaluation procedures, it added. OpenAI revealed that instances in which language models confidently generate an answer that isn't true continue to plague newer, more advanced iterations, including its latest flagship GPT-5 system. According to a recent study, the problem is rooted in the way the performance of language models is usually evaluated, with the guessing model ranked higher than a careful one that admits uncertainty. Under the standard protocols, AI systems learn that failure to generate an answer is a surefire way to get 0 points on a test, while an unsubstantiated guess may end up being correct. So AI just guessing at this point. And I know a lot of people who use it. I don't shit on people who use AI. It's just, I'm always just like, for one thing, don't use any personal information in these things, okay? God forbid. Just, if you're asking for legal services or whatever, always double check. Always just make sure and get like 2 or 3 sources on that information, just like you would your news, right? Because AI will just be like, what does pizza taste like? Sunshine and kittens? I don't know. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. So, anyway, that's your propaganda watch for today. Coming up later in the day, we got our buddy Kevin from Black Bear News. Of course, he'll be on, and if you can support him too, he's got a GoFundMe going on. If you don't know by now, he lost his home in the LA fires and could use all the help he can get. All the his donation links are down below in the box. So if you click that, if not, if you could share out the link, that'll help out as well. And plus, our buddy Cowboy Kitty's GoFundMe for his friend that is being detained by ICE and needs legal help to get her out. Those links are down below as well. And also, I think Willie has a show today, right? Willie's got Red State Agenda, I think. Is that who they are? These two dudes on the YouTube, Country Boys. That should be good. I'm not quite sure. Is it 9:30 Eastern, Willie? Maybe it's earlier than that. I don't know. Willie's probably asleep by now. But anyway, check out Willie Bragg tonight. It's sometime this evening. So check your local listings for that. And what else is going on? Anything else? Anybody else got shows going on today? I'm not quite sure. Finally today, folks, I'm a big fan of Comic-Con. I'm a big old nerd. I've been to the one in New York several years in a row. Of course, this year, during the summer, they have Comic-Con in San Diego, and the one in New York is usually held in October, and it will be this year as well. Red State Update. Thank you. What did I say? Red State Agenda. Their name is Red State Update. And I believe they're on YouTube. I don't know if they're on Rumble or not. Maybe. But he's going to have them on. That should be an interesting conversation this evening. So, so Comic-Con next month in New York. But they also have Comic-Con in South Africa, which is very interesting. I didn't know that. So fans pour into South Africa Comic-Con despite few celebrity headliners. That's a nice hat. A 16-year-old in a yellow spandex Wolverine suit, claws fashioned from plastic straws, squared off against a stockier Deadpool 2 years his junior at Comic-Con Africa, the continent's largest pop culture gathering. At this year's festival, held at the same venue set to host G20 leaders in November, the stars weren't on stage. They were the fans, thousands of self-professed nerds, comic book lovers, superhero fans, and anime obsessives descended on the Johannesburg venue, undeterred by a noticeably slimmed down celebrity lineup. Highlights nonetheless include Dan Fogler, best known for playing Jacob Kowalski in the Harry Potter spinoff Fantastic Beasts. Around 70,000 people were expected to attend the convention, which runs from Thursday through Sunday. You say, wow, 70,000 people. I'm not sure about the San Diego numbers, but the ones in New York, they tend to run around 150,000, so like double that amount of people, and it's so cramped. And to only have 70,000 people, and you could just walk around and have that space, so nice. Among them was Shigo Fatso. Among them was Shigo Fatso Nabe, attending for the 4th year in a row. It's an unfortunate name. The teenager left nothing to chance, this time maxing out her savings on a striking blonde and blue wig, colored contact lenses, high platform shoes, and delicate angel wings that seem to sprout from the back of her head. Her inspiration, Sunday, a villain from Honkai Star Rail, a Chinese-built game where anime characters battle space monsters. The cosplay community is so kind, and this is the only time in the year when I can experience the joy of wearing this costume outside without someone looking at me weirdly, she told AFP. Wonder Woman, Darth Vader, and Spider-Man mingled nearby. There aren't many conventions in Africa, and this is the only chance to express ourselves and connect with people who are in the same fandom, she said, which was very nice. And it really does. It brings people from around the world to places like, New York and San Diego for those Comic-Cons, and then and stuff here in Chicago too. And you're right, it's just it's like a costume party. You get to dress up as whoever you like and mingle with other people. I used to go I like to take pictures of cosplay people. I would make videos of just cosplay people. And it's just the amount of detail that they go into to make these costumes is just insane, right? My idea of doing a costume, I had a yellow shirt and I painted a black scribble down here to where it looked like Charlie Brown. Head wings, I know, right? Like she's the Flash or something, right? Doesn't the Flash have wings on his head? Travis and Jonathan. Okay. Yeah, it's a fun time, but it's expensive now, and it's way overcrowded. I would say probably about 15 years ago, it was probably just one of the most fun things that I've ever experienced. But then everybody else found out about it, and more people, and then it became a hassle to get passes and stuff, and you had to. It was a mess. But anyway, if you're going, be safe, enjoy yourself, and have fun. That's what it's all about. That's going to do it for me. Like I said, we got those shows coming on later. Kevin at Black Bear News and Willie later this evening with Red State Update. And I'll be back on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. I appreciate all you guys. If you want to make a donation or join our Patreon, all the information is down below. If not, if you can share out those links, that would be appreciated as well. Any little bit helps. We appreciate everything that you do. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you on Friday. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!